Picture this. It's a cold January night in Hartford, Connecticut, 1988. Streetlights flicker, a soft mist blankets the empty streets, and somewhere in a dimly lit parking lot, a young woman steps into her car after a night out with friends. She's ready to leave behind the crowded bar, the loud laughter, and head back to the comforts of home. But just as she shifts into reverse, a stranger slips into the back seat. She doesn't notice until it's too late. Her world goes dark as she's shoved to the passenger side, knuckles cracking against her face in a brutal greeting. The nightmare has only just begun. As he settles into the driver's seat, our unknown villain doesn't even have the courtesy to ask for directions. Instead, he steers the car into the unknown, a place as mysterious as his motives. He beats her, robs her of her dignity, and takes her jewelry, as if he's shopping for souvenirs. And then, as though leaving behind a crime scene scavenger hunt, he ditches her car in some random parking lot and vanishes. Shaken, bruised, but alive, she finds her way to the police. She can't remember every detail of his face, but she remembers enough to pick someone out from a lineup. Her finger lands on one man, a man named James Tillman. For James, this would be the beginning of his own personal nightmare. He wasn't in that parking lot, but his life would soon be hijacked in much the same way. When James went to trial, it all came down to that lineup identification. No fingerprints, no DNA evidence, just a shaky identification. It was enough to convince an all-white jury in Hartford. After all, why question it? But to James, it was a tragic twist of fate. Maybe James just had one of those faces. A face a jury would convict, as the saying goes. Or perhaps the real problem was, as he would later argue, that this face didn't match the faces in the jury box. James spent years behind bars. 45 years was his sentence. He appealed the verdict in 1991, claiming that racial bias played a role in his conviction. But the court had other ideas. They rejected him, once again slamming the door on his hope. 8 years later, he tried again. And again, the answer was no. Another dead end in a life full of them. Then, in 2005, like a candle flickering to life in a pitch-black room, the Connecticut Innocence Project took an interest. DNA technology had made leaps since that cold night in 1988. If only they could get their hands on the old evidence. And get their hands on it, they did. They tested it. Not once, not twice, but enough to know that those semen stains, they weren't James's. Not even close. In July of 2006, nearly 2 decades after his life had been torn apart, James Tillman walked free. The real twist? The state of Connecticut had a big oops moment. Their apology, a check for $5 million. Talk about a costly case of mistaken identity. But let's face it, no amount of cash can buy back years of lost time, missed moments, or the relentless nightmares that linger. And somewhere out there, the real criminal from that cold night in 1988 got to walk free while James Tillman paid the price.